Now, the schedule has been so fucked up and upside down. Leon Vitali, thank you for coming in. Was scheduled for tomorrow, but you had it today, so we're happy that you're here.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk to you. Now, how did you, Leon Vitali, of course, there's a great documentary on Netflix that's kind of chronicling everything that you went through for a lot of years in your life. How did Stanley Kubrick do with schedules? Is this a guy who, spur of the moment, you could just throw something at him, okay, we're doing this now, or did he go, we said we're doing this at 3?
No, it's the other way round.
I see.
He used to say, okay, we're doing this now.
And it would be now. It wouldn't be like, we're going to do this in 3 weeks. It's going, nope, now is the time we're doing it.
Well, he always had a plan laid out. But, I mean, by the time you reach the end of whatever day or whatever production, you realize all that went out the window, depending on what happened on the day you had planned to do something.
How many years did you actually work together?
25.
Wow.
And then I still actually work for him in a way because I do the transfers of his films, Blu-ray, DVDs.
Now,
I'm a bit of a film buff. I mean, honestly, I love film, so I'm a big Kubrick fan. I mean, I've seen Jerry Lyndon is my favorite movie. I've seen that twice.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That was a good one. Yeah.
Twice is a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of times.
Yeah, Jerry Lyndon was...
Jerry, yeah.
I don't know.
He's the Irish guy.
Right. I'm not sure. Jim realizes how foolish he sounds.
Well, can you talk
now.
about how did you meet Kubrick? Was it on the set of Jerry Lyndon, or where was it?
Jerry Lyndon.
Jim, you sound a little...
He's a brother of Barry Lyndon.
Yeah. The movie's called Barry.
But he saw it twice. How is that possible?
Yeah,
it's my favorite film.
Yeah.
It was Barry Lyndon, but yeah,
I was nervous.
We'll throw it in post. We'll figure it out.
So you were in that movie.
Yeah.
And this was after he had done The Godfather. So by then, like, he was really.
Jim,
Yes.
Jim, he didn't.
I can tell you're a film buff.
That's not it's a different director, Jim.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it was right. It was. I mean,
Yeah.
to my knowledge, Francis Ford Coppola directed The Godfather. Is that right?
Yeah, either Francis Ford Coppola or Francis Toyota Coppola.
Okay, it was one of those.
Fucking home run.
It was one of those. How did you end up meeting Stanley Kubrick?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I was told I had to audition for him for the film for Barry Lyndon, and I thought I was going to meet him there, but it never happened because he never met anybody for auditions. He just didn't. He was never present, and they started. I think it was one of the first times they did video auditions in the UK. I mean, this is way back in the 70s. So I got the part, and I went down to Salisbury, where they were in England, where they were filming, and I just felt this tap on my shoulder, and I turned around, and there he was, and he just said, "Hi, Leon, I'm Stanley." And he put his hand out, we shook hands, and that was it. We were
linked.
How is it being so close to a guy who is such a mythical figure?
Right.
Like, I mean, there's directors, there's Scorsese and Coppola and all these guys, but Kubrick had his own kind of
world.
More than Spielberg, more than any of them. Even other directors had this mystique that they put on him. He was like unique in that group, and you're closest to this person that everybody wants to be close to.
Yeah, but he always went his own way. I can't tell you, whenever we started on a project, we had a script. But the further we went into the production, the less the script got done. It was a kind of organic growth. So if, for instance, he did a scene... Well, I'll just tell you the first time that I was on set with him.
Yeah.
He just said, okay... I want you to do this scene the way you think you're going to do it, and then we'll kind of go from there, and I'll watch you through... He had this little tube, Ariflex tube, where you could connect different lenses on the end of it, and he'd take all the crew off the stage, apart from his DOP, and you'd have to do the scene over and over and over again as he tried to find his first angle, And as we went on, he just kept on saying, okay, well, that's great. Try it a little more like the way you were doing it just then. So it was always a case of drawing something out of you. It was never a kind of, I want you to do this and I want you to do that. You kind of found your own temperature and emotional heart of the scene. And as soon as he thought right, we've got something, that was his first shot. And then after that, every shot in that scene came off that first shot.
So he's not a storyboarder per se.
He never storyboarded.
Wow.
Did you ever see him yell at an actor?
No. I mean,
Really?
not really. No. He saved that for us.
Do you remember the first time he yelled at you?
Yes, I do.
What was it for?
Well, yeah.
Oh, was it for? Oh God. No, it was for a total screw up, which happened. It was just a miscommunication, really. About we were filming Full Metal Jacket, and we were sending these extras to an airbase where we were filming, and there was a message about somebody who had to be there, but I never got it. But that didn't really matter to him.
Right.
But the thing is, very often what you knew was it wasn't personal. I know that sounds crazy, but he never you could stand back and see this is venting. He's just venting,
And it just had everything to do with the job.
It just
not
had
about-
everything to do with the job and the fact that it held things up and that it was.
So how do you go from being an actor in a film to being his kind of right-hand man? Like, do you just start throwing ideas at him on the set, and he's like, I like you. You should stick around.
No. No, it was just that I had a 13-day contract over 8 weeks originally, and I only had one dialogue scene and 2 kind of pass-by scenes to establish who I was in the film. And but I was there so long. What he used to do is get me. I had to be dressed and made up and everything, and sit outside the set until they wrapped.
Mhm.
And then he'd call me in, and he'd just say, "Okay, Leon, give me that dialogue from that one dialogue speech that I had at the time."
Mhm.
And so I'd do it, and he'd say, "Okay, thank you very much. Good night." Shake hands. Up I went. And I was doing this so long, and I started to get very interested in what was going on. The build-up, everything. Are you looking around? You just saw this huge bunch of people and equipment and everything, just coordinating or trying to get to where Stanley wanted it to be for that shot.
Mhm.
And it just fascinated me that so much of the effort was into the chase after perfection, I guess. I mean, it's the most cliched way I can put it.
But didn't people just want to please him? People really wanted to please him.
Oh, yes. I mean, for different reasons. But I would say that was the base of it,
But so you start getting very curious about everything that's going
Yes,
on.
Exactly. And I sort of said to him, in the end, I was there for 7 months.
Mhm.
And he'd written in a whole bunch of new scenes and kept me there to the end of the movie. And
So obviously there was just something about you that he liked.
Well, we had a rapport.
Yeah.
We sat down in between breaks and what have you. We just talked about anything and everything.
Mhm.
Sport and movies, of course, politics, the whole lot. So anyway, he said, well, if you're really interested, do something about it and then let me know. So I did another film. It was actually a Frankenstein film. And I said, okay, I'll do it, but I want to work in the cutting room afterwards.
Wow.
And so, and I said this to the producer. He was a really nice guy, actually. And I said, I'll do it for free. And he said, good. This is what we like to hear.
Because you wanted to work with Kubrick.
Sorry?
You did this because you wanted to work with him.
Yeah, I wanted to get the experience and maybe to work with him. He didn't promise anything.
But by the way, that's going back to what you said a minute ago about wanting to please him.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You wanted to be able to go back to him and said, that thing that you said I should do,
Yeah,
I
I've
did
done
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And you also you were in on the casting in The Shining as well, which was really interesting. Where did you go and what did they have you doing for The Shining?
He wanted me to find the little boy, Danny. So he sent me to Denver, Chicago, and Kansas. And the reason was because it was all Midwest. So whatever little boy we found, he was going to have a pretty neutral kind of
Accent.
accent,
And you found him out of how many kids did you talk to?
out of 4,000.
Jeez.
You talked to that many?
Yeah.
Or you saw tape of them, or had?
No. I talked to them, and then the ones that were good, I taped.
Was there a fear that you're like, I'm going to pick the wrong kid. I don't know what I'm going to do. What if he doesn't like it? Or were you confident by then that you kind of got what he wanted?
Well, I was confident that, I knew what we were looking for, which is, it's not describable. There were a set of rules I had to follow, One was, if they didn't come into the room with me on their own, forget it.
Mm-hmm.
And if they weren't open, if they were closed off, forget it. And if their parents wanted to kind of come into the room with them, forget it.
Right.
And when I was in Chicago, I met this family and little Danny Lloyd, who was just 4 at the time, and I broke all those rules. Now, I don't know why. I wish I knew.
Uh-huh.
Why he didn't walk into the room with you?
Well, he didn't want to at first. He really didn't. He was like this, frozen stiff, And his mum and his brother were really, really nice. It was very sweet with him. And I just got down there and I said, come in. It's all right. It's nothing to worry about.
You weren't wearing the dog suit at the time, were you?
No.
Okay.
By the way, did you get to talk
I
to
saved that later.
Did you get to talk to those guys at Craft Services? The guy in the dog suit blowing the other guy?
yeah. It's like every day they did that. And anyway,
The guy in the dog suit probably thinks he's the next Leon Vitali. Like, I don't know. I think Stanley really likes me. He's probably going to use me on a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. Oh, he had enough dogs at home. And so anyway, he went in with me in the end, and we just sat about 2 feet apart, and he went silent again, and then he just said, "Gee, Leon, I like your suit," for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were talking, and then he had the most amazing focus and concentration. I mean, I've seen kids up to 8, 9 years old, and none of them had that focus that he had.
Yeah.
He was wonderful, and so I started every audition with getting down on our hands and knees, improvising, and animals and stuff like that, just to get them going, and then slowly introduced aspects of the scene into the improvisation.
Because you need to find a kid that's going to be like adorable at first, but also terrifying in a way, and can do this sort of wide variety of emotions that most kids don't even know what they are yet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you, what is this whole documentary, Room 237, where there are people are obsessed with The Shining and all these messages?
Secret
in it?
messages in it.
Secret messages.
Secret messages,
What is there anything to any of that, or is it all crap?
So one of them is like that there's Nazi propaganda in it. One of them is that Stanley is winking at everybody and letting everybody know that he filmed the moon landing.
That's right. Yeah,
That was one of them. A whole bunch of different
Whole
possible
bunch.
meanings.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you help him film the moon landing,
Yeah,
by
were
the
you
way,
there
or
when
did
that
he do that
happened?
on his own?
I think I did it in another life.
Oh, I see. But do you watch something like Room 237 and go, this is a whole bunch of bunk. This is malarkey.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I did. But I've actually got to be quite good friends with the guy who made that film.
Oh.
But the thing is,
Was that
I think-
Rodney
Asher.
Yeah.
Rodney Asher.
Yeah. He did the Nightmare documentary as well, right? Did you see that one?
No.
It was great.
No,
It was
what?
great. But go on.
Nightmare.
The Nightmare. It was about nightmares and bad dreams and night terrors. And,
Oh, right. I didn't see that.
Yeah.
okay, well, it's not a stupid question, Jim. It's another credit. He did it. It's a real thing.
But I think
Okay.
it kind of misfired.
Jerry Lyndon over here, right?
Oh, Jerry, yeah.
Exactly.
Great film, man. I've seen that twice. I'm a film buff.
Yeah. But I think one of the things was he wanted people to know how crazy some of these theories were, and how many different people saw the film in different ways, in crazy ways. But he didn't really come across like that. It sort of felt like it was a propaganda for this is what the film really meant, and this is what the film really meant.
Now, to your knowledge, did Stanley sneak in hidden meanings and things like that into his films? I mean, because it feels when you watch them like there's this tremendous amount of detail put into things where it's like,
In this
well,
conspiracy, or do you mean in his movies?
in Stanley's
yeah.
movies. Like, there is enough that you can analyze and develop conspiracy theories. Are there secret meanings behind a lot of these films, The Shining and others?
Not really. I mean, for The Shining, for instance, he had me, apart from looking for the little boy, he had me, I went round, I don't know, by the time I finished, about 60, 70 hotels of all kinds, in all those cities, just taking photographs, food larders, and everywhere, bathrooms everywhere, and every kind. And you had another crew doing it in 3 other cities.
Did guys in the restroom think you were crazy when you're walking with a camera, just snapping photos? Lord knows I've gotten yelled at for that. Oh, now.
Yeah, especially when I found a senator in there playing footsie.
Just tap the foot. Let him know.
Just tap the foot, yeah.
Wait,
We'll let Leon continue.
Yeah. And so all of everything was made up of thousands of details from all the research pictures that we all shot. So many of us shot. So.
Oh, I see. So there's not necessarily one central mind behind this.
No. It's what would a hotel of this size have in its food larder?
Is that hotel still there, by the way? The one that they used for the Overlook? That is still in Colorado, right?
Well, the outside of it.
Yeah.
The inside and the outside are two different.
Oh, right.
Yeah. No, that's still there. They used to have a horror film festival, Stanley Park, it's called, coincidentally. And they used to have a film festival there every year, which I used to go to. But it's a horror film fest. But it's got so big now, they've moved it.
So the stuff I was just going to ask, so the stuff in the pantry, these are not hidden messages about the Indian
massacres.
Massacres?
No.
That's a real bummer. You kind of want to think that the conspiracies are true. Isn't that funner?
I know. But it's like that picture in the games room of this downhill skier.
Yes.
And that woman says it's Satan, and behind him is that plume of flame. That's, it's not. It's a snow trail.
Well, what about
What is the painting in Scatman Crothers' house, where he's sitting there watching TV over his toes, and there's that painting of the lady with the afro?
Yeah.
But there were hidden
Well, no secret meanings there, Jim.
That's fairly direct.
Yeah,
sure is.
But there were little details in that thing that had to be intentional, like the idea that Jack is reading Playgirl magazine. That can't be a mistake unless it's a joke or something.
No. Those things would come up when you were working on the scene, for instance. We'd say, what would Jack read? I mean, what did he? What kind of guy was he? And he was an ex-alcoholic. Well, he's an alcoholic,
sure,
for a start. And he had a very, very sort of loose idea about morality.
Yeah.
So those ideas came up at the time.
Did you get to know Nicholson at all? Did you spend a lot of time with him?
In a way, I mean, really, because he was on set so much for so many. I mean, we shot for nearly a year. So I mean, that tells you something. You get people like Jack Nicholson. He was at the height of his career. Ryan, when he was at the height of his career. Tom Cruise at the height of his career.
Yeah.
These guys, you say, okay. I mean, Tom would have made 3 movies in the time it took to make Eyes Wide Shut.
But all of them, none of those guys, Stanley was not intimidated by any of those guys.
No.
But they all worshipped him. I mean, that's a great point. They all worshipped him to the point that, like,
Sure.
Tom Cruise, for example, you're right, could have done a year's worth of work in the amount of time it took him to do Eyes Wide Shut.
Absolutely. And when you think that it was probably $20 million a pop for doing movies.
Right. He's not making $60 million for Eyes Wide Shut.
No, exactly.
Right.
Did you ever see, this is what I've never seen like a lot of deleted, are there deleted scenes from The Shining, or especially Clockwork Orange? I would love to see anything from that hasn't been seen. Have you seen deleted scenes from that movie?
No, and in actual fact, I went on a burning mission where he had me take all those outtakes
and burn them.
Oh, why?
He didn't want people to see the stuff he didn't want to put in his movies.
No.
But did you watch any of the Clockwork Orange stuff that was blown or deleted?
No.
He's probably there for some of it, right?
No, it was 71. It was
that was before.
Yeah. Well, you being a film buff, you'd know that.
I was 71.
He saw Clockwork Orange 1.5 times.
Yeah, it was weird to see Mick Jagger acting too. He was so good as Albert DeLarge.
Albert. Did you think it was the idea in The Shining? Was Jack Nicholson's character? Did he molest his son? Do you think?
We mean physically.
Fumble with him.
Yeah, he did, and he admitted it in the bar, the hotel, where he says, I want to pull him away from spilling all my papers, and 1 second of too much pressure per.
He injured him. That was a physical assault.
But did you think he sexually abused him?
No.
I told Sam keeps trying to get that in there. I'm like, it didn't happen.
Well, that's another theory of the film that I wanted to find out about.
Not sexually abused. No.
There was no sexual abuse. And how was the the mood on Full Metal Jacket. I mean, that's another classic. It's almost like two movies. Like there's
Yeah.
the part with until Gunner Sergeant Hartman is killed, and then there's the second part
Right.
over in Vietnam. And people always say the first part they loved much more than the second part.
I love that second part.
Did
I
you?
think it's very underrated. The second half of that movie.
It's funny because it sort of swings that way with whoever you talk to. you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, I mean, at first, when I first saw it, I was like everybody else and kind of liked that first part. But that second half of that movie really, I'm a bit of a film buff myself, but the second half of the movie really, really has grown on me.
Did you hang out with the guy? He's my favorite guy in any Kubrick movie. What's that? Some kind of sick joke?
Yeah, Lee Ermey.
No, not Lee Army. No, not Lee Army. The guy who played the Marine Colonel overseas, where he goes, "What's that on your helmet?"
Bruce Bower. Well, you didn't really hang out because you never had any time to, but you got to know them because they were, so filming so long, so many days on a scene, that you got to know them quite well.
Were all those guys nice to you? Guys that wouldn't talk to other assistants on a set, but because you were Stanley's assistant, they probably treated you a lot better. Even high-profile actors probably treated you better than they would have the assistant of anybody else.
Sometimes they thought I was Stanley's spy. I thought that would have been a bit obvious if I was Stanley's spy.
Who thought you were Stanley's spy?
Oh, some.
And how did you prove to
No
them you
names, no pet drill.
How did you prove to them? By the way, you're promoting the Filmworker. It's just called Filmworker, which is a great documentary on Netflix.
Yeah,
which
it's on
I saw. I
Netflix.
loved it.
Oh, thank you.
So interesting because you don't hear a lot about Kubrick's personal life, and you just hear about the movies and what the movies meant, but
You hear about the legend, right?
Yeah.
Like not
Yeah.
the man.
not the guy who actually fucking saw him in shitty, cranky moods. Or did you play chess with him?
No, I didn't know, but I watched him play chess with other people.
Yeah, was he good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're
That was a riot. I mean, it really was. Because people used to come in. We had a couple of actors who kind of really sort of were into chess. And they had their own kind of chess sets, all gold embossed and everything. And they used to come into the dressing room and they'd say, right, okay, lay it all out. And Stanley would come in and be boom, 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 checkmate. And it was like, what?
He was
Just
really a good
happened.
player.
Yeah, he was really a player.
Who was he intimidated by? Because everyone was so intimidated by him. Everyone worshipped him. Who did Stanley look up to? I'm going to guess Hitchcock.
Yeah. I mean, he admired other filmmakers, of course, Kurosawa, Bergman. He liked, and he also liked, small budget stuff where he saw how promising a filmmaker could be. So we'd watch a lot of first-time director movies, and he'd be very encouraging to them. He really would. So, but he's a very Catholic taste, very broad taste in movies. He didn't have a favorite genre or anything like that.
Why did he move to England and stop making films here?
Oh, well, he made Paths of Glory in Spain, and then he came to England to make Lolita. And he found it was so kind of conducive because he was 6,000 miles away from interference.
right.
And so it was a very kind of relaxing way of working on his movies because things are very relaxed in the UK, in that way. There's not that kind of, well, it probably is now, but you know what I mean, that kind of get things done, men of action and all that.
Did you ever resent him? Like, because you gave up your whole life, your whole acting career, and your work, he's a genius, but did you ever have resentment for it?
No, I didn't. I mean, if I think about it now, I realize, well, my relationship, I didn't see my children in the way that, other people see their children. But they came and stayed with me on vacations, and he used to come to the house when they were on their school vacations, and Stanley would hijack them. They'd go into the kitchen. As soon as he saw them, he'd say, "You want some tea and toast?" And they say, yeah. I mean, bear in mind, this was from when they were 7 and 3 right up to when he died. And 2 hours later, I'd walk into the kitchen with some information for him, and they were still sitting there, just the 3 of them,
It's amazing.
just talking.
So they had a good
Just
relationship
talking.
with him as well.
Yeah.
Were there people business-wise that were jealous of the relationship that you had with Stanley? I'm sure, especially, I mean, when you watch somebody
Yeah.
who's great,
Yeah.
you know what I mean, and it's just like inarguably great.
Right.
How would you know?
No, I wouldn't. You would.
But when when you like, that's an attractive quality. Like, people want to be around that. People want to be the chosen one. I want him to want to hang out with me. I want him to want me around. Were there people that were jealous of the relationship that you had with him? The way people are with the relationship I have with Jim Norton, for example.
Yes.
Oh, right.
Right.
People
Sexual.
jealous of your relationship.
They are very jealous.
It's a dom sub relationship. It's a guy in a suit and a dog outfit.
Oh, right.
It's very much like The Shining.
Definitely jealous. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Enjoying the films that each one of you enjoys.
That's
like
right.
Jerry Lyndon.
Yeah,
Right, Jerry Lyndon.
Yeah. I've seen it. It's almost twice. The second time I had to go to work, but I mean, I've seen most of it.
Right.
All natural lighting, by the way, correct?
Yeah. No.
Oh, see, I told you.
No, but that's
you didn't. No,
yeah,
you
that's
didn't.
another myth.
He said it was all natural
I did
lighting, and
not.
I'm like, no,
No,
because
no,
there's
I did
certain
not
scenes that
say
could
that.
have been natural lighting.
That's
You've
right.
never seen the film.
I have.
Twice.
But
Yes.
twice. I've stayed
Jonathan
corrected.
Brandstein's hair is taken from that film.
Were you?
No,
were
but-
people jealous of your relationship?
Okay. Stanley actually said I should, understand that would happen, and I suppose it did. But I never sort of paid too much attention to it because sometimes, most of the time, when there's opposition from other people, it's because they're worrying about their job, the consequences of what you say would be for them. So I only ever saw anything like that as a kind of a pushback because I'm screwing up their schedules or something.
Like a little bit. Was there resentment from people that are like, I just want to talk to Stanley. I got to go through this guy every time.
Well, yeah, no,
Yeah.
yes, I would say that happened.
So people probably times a lot nicer to you. Because they
sure.
wanted to be close to him.
And, yeah, I suppose that happened too. Yeah.
So I was watching another great documentary, and it's the one that I believe Stanley Kubrick's daughter did on the set of The Shining.
Yeah.
And it brings me back to you talking about that Stanley didn't really yell at actors because Shelley Duvall
Right.
kind of acted like he was a complete monster on the set of that film. And I've always wondered, is it because that's who he was, or was he trying to bring out a kind of psychosis in her for the purpose of the film?
Well, that's much more accurate way of thinking about it. If you think that, by the time halfway through the story, Shelley has got to be on her character had to be on such a level, for a very long time in that story, she's running around pulling her hair out, being terrified, of what's happening there. And it's a very high pitch to get to, So once she got there, that's what she had to maintain and even take it further. And I got to say, I mean, Stanley never sort of, what can I say, sort of abused her in that way. I mean, what he did was push her in the way he used to push everybody.
Well, did he film in order, the film? Or like,
No,
he
no,
didn't,
no,
he
no,
didn't,
no,
right?
no,
Of course
no,
not.
no.
But she said, and who knows, this is her
She
perspective.
wouldn't want to do it again.
Right, and that Jack Nicholson was treated much better than she was.
He's Nicholson.
Was it because he's Nicholson? Was it because he's supposed to be a little bit...
Gee. Who am
Cocky.
I nicer
I
to,
don't know.
Randall
I mean,
McMurphy or
I don't
fucking
know.
olive oil?
I guess Randall McMurphy. Yeah. Olive oil wouldn't get the star treatment, would she? That's a great point.
Yeah.
Olive oil.
I hadn't thought of that. All right.
But does that kind of sum up why the treatment was different? Because
Yeah.
one was...
Yeah.
One
One
won
was
the
Jack.
Oscar, and one was fucking second banana to fucking a man with fucking spinach muscles.
But you've got to say, I mean, I personally, I think that she came out of the film, and got very little credit for what she did because she hadn't got that pitch.
Mm-hmm.
Jack, it wouldn't have been as terrifying and monstrous,
100%.
you know.
Yeah.
By the way, the clothing in that film, her outfits were so abominable, but it was perfect. It was perfect.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the really good-looking girl in the tub, whatever happened to her?
You're talking about the old woman?
Not the old woman, no, the one who morphed into the old lady.
Oh, that's our tastes. What can I
Yeah,
tell you?
which was
Yeah.
basically it was a great, it probably wasn't meant to be like a metaphor for being an alcoholic, but you start off the night seeing her this way, and
Oh,
that's
yeah,
what she
yeah.
is in the morning.
That is a great metaphor. I never even thought of it that way.
either.
Yeah, I'm just throwing that out there. But did you get to know her at all? The hot lady with the heavy bosoms?
The naked woman.
Yeah, the attractive one?
Would you have made it a point to get to know her, Jim?
Yes, I certainly
You
would
would've.
have. Yeah.
All right. Well, she was the model.
She was.
Yeah.
I guess I can believe
Didn't
that.
she? Or no, maybe I'm thinking about the one with the silver hair from Clockwork Orange. Now owns a shop of some sort. Maybe Malcolm McDowell talked about that, where she owns a little shop in England where she sells.
What do you think? He keeps track of every person who's ever been in.
Yes, he knows everything about every Stanley Kubrick movie. He's literally the guy who's in charge of putting them on DVD, Blu-ray, doing everything. How many times have you seen most of his films?
Hundreds.
Hundreds.
More than twice?
Wow.
Hundreds.
Oh, because he's.
But you never saw any scenes from Clockwork Orange or any takes like no scenes.
No outtakes, no. No, and his very first film, Fear and Desire, which he hated.
Why?
He just thought it was crap. And he never wanted it to be seen. You know, so I actually, and that went on for years, you know. And I actually found a copy of it when I was in the projection booth, threading some film up in the projector. And I said to him, "You realize there's a copy of Film and Desire here?" And he said to me, he said, "Leon, promise me you don't ever look at that movie." And I said, "No, I won't." He said, "No, promise me you'll never look at that movie." And so I said, "Okay, I promise I won't look at that movie." And I never have.
You still have it?
No.
Got rid of it.
That was number one in the old incendiary.
Oh wow! No one ever. Wait, that's so great. I would never have honored that promise. You're more.
You would
honorable.
not.
No, because I would have maybe tried to talk him into releasing it or something.
Yeah. Well, they've done that anyway.
Oh, it was out there.
They've done that after he died. They put it on
How did they get a copy?
DVD. Well, that was a very good question because we were looking for the negative all the years I was working for him, and nobody kind of owned up to having it. You know.
Do you? Because they probably knew you wanted to burn it. Do you have any stuff from Clockwork Orange? Like anything from that was actually
Props
in the
or
film?
whatever?
Anything?
No.
Like a hat.
No, you know, I don't know. I mean, I just never sort of hoarded anything really.
I guess when you have that kind of relationship with Stanley, you don't need the props, right?
Well, I was just wondering because you're the archiver too. So I mean, I've seen a lot in the documentary. You're
Only
seeing
of his movies.
Only
Only
of
of his movies. Yeah.
like all the oh right, but not the props and
Not
stuff.
the
But
props,
no
no.
original scripts or any of that stuff.
No.
They said there was a weird moment in Clockwork Orange too, where the guy who played the governor,
Right.
handed back the script and said thank you at the end, and it was like a real. It was really kind of insulting because nobody handed Kubrick back one of his scripts. If you had one, you would keep it.
All right.
Oh, I see. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you-
well, he might have been specifically asked to hand it, which everybody was. I mean, they weren't supposed to take scripts.
Oh, really?
with them. No. But everyone did. I
Yeah, of
guess.
course.
And he had no patience for people who fucked up their lines or didn't know their lines.
No, you're right. He didn't have any patience for people who didn't learn their lines.
Did
So
you
the-
see guys? Oh, sorry, Sam. Did you see guys who were big enough? Like you have Cruz, you have Nicholson, and those guys are professional. But did you see guys on that level who he would tolerate a little bit more from because of who they were?
No, but I mean, I don't want it to get misunderstood. He didn't sort of bawl people out in the set. You know, what he would do is, well, not with the lead actors. I mean, what he'd do with them, as he did with everything, was go off for a walk with them and just, obviously quietly talk to them. And then other people he sent to me to work on the dialogue. So that's what I did with, for instance, Scatman, Carruthers in The Shining.
Was he really screwing things up?
Well,
He could say he's dead.
yes, but loved. Yeah. I mean, he's in the Guinness Book of Records
For
For
what?
screwing up so many lines?
no, for the number of takes.
Oh, in that screaming scene.
No. When he's sitting down talking to the little boy.
Oh, really?
How many takes?
Well, it was 100 plus.
Oh, I
my
thought it was the
God.
scene. I thought it was the scene where he's
Wow.
zoned, where he's like silently screaming to Danny. I didn't realize it was a dialogue scene.
He'd be still doing that now if that was over 100 takes. Yeah.
So, what did he keep screwing up the lines, or he just wasn't getting it right?
No, he was 68 years old, and he just had a problem sometimes. I kind of think if I'd been smart, I'd have taught him that dialogue in some kind of rhythm because he could remember every song he ever sang from the 30s.
Sure.
And so I think for him it was just that repetition of not having a rhythm to sort of hook everything on to. So, and it was a big long monologue.
Right. Right.
Which part of the monologue was that? Sorry, Sam. Which one?
When he's sitting with a little boy and he says, you know, when something happens, it leaves a trace of itself behind.
Oh.
Say, like if someone burns toast. How is it up to there, Stanley? And of course, it was another
Yeah,
40 lines of dialogue.
Isn't it amazing?
Well, it was very good, Scat, but you know.
Yeah, was Stanley get mad at him, or did he like him?
No, I tell you, Stanley was so patient. They wanted the ads wanted to say, look, we should send him home. You know, it's really. And he said, no, if we send him home, he'll feel really bad. He'll understand we send him home because of that. And so we just absolutely, he was so patient and just said, it's great. And the further we got on, the more closer he got, until suddenly he was there.
Now, but because it was so difficult, were you guys kind of relieved when he walked in and took the axe in the chest?
Yeah. Actually, yes, we did it as a revenge. For that.
That's right.
Because in the book, it's a mallet. In the book,
Yeah.
Jack is chasing with a mallet, and they're hedge animals. It's not a maze.
Yeah.
I thought that the changes. Did it bother him that Stephen King hated his version? Because I thought it was one of the rare exceptions where the movie was much scarier than the book.
I agree, and no, he didn't mind Stephen.
Not one bit.
Not one bit.
He didn't care that he disliked his version at all?
No.
Because Stephen King's version was shit. I saw that they did
Yeah,
it on
have you-
TV,
well,
it was awful.
Have you seen the Stephen King version of the
I
movie?
saw part one of it.
That was enough.
That was enough.
That was enough.
Here's one question I had. Did any, there's one, the very few Kubrick mistakes, but there is one in the opening of The Shining.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yes, I swear to God.
How do you know it was only one of Stanley Kubrick's mistakes?
It's the only one I've ever caught. I
Right,
very
okay.
rarely have caught his.
And he's seen all the movies at least 2 times.
Absolutely.
least 2 times,
Oh, come on. Yeah. Paths to Happiness. I saw that.
That's right.
Yeah.
The Awakening.
Yes,
Yeah.
awesome film. Nurse Strangelove. So, what is when in the opening, where they're going into the mountain, that amazing music.
Yeah.
That horrifying opening music.
Yeah.
There's a moment where you see the shadow of the helicopter
Right.
flying over the mountain, and I'm like, that must have driven him nuts if he saw that.
Well, you're going to be surprised when you hear this. You know, he was also a fan of people like playwrights like Bertolt Brecht. Now, I don't know if you know anything. He was a German
I do, but he
playwright.
doesn't.
Right, you do, yeah.
Right. Could you explain? Because I'm
Yeah.
lost. He's on board.
Stupid.
I'm stupid.
It
I'm
was
very
what-
stupid.
Well, Brecht had this idea which he used to use all the time, and it was called alienation, where he wanted people to understand from time to time that they were actually in a theatre and they were watching, a play. So he'd take them out of the situation. But I'm not saying they planned the helicopter.
So not a
landing.
mistake, you fuck.
No. Well, it was for them who did it.
Sure.
But for Stanley, it was, so what? I mean.
So he was still wrong. Jim was still wrong. Like
Oh,
Stanley
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
drive Stanley crazy. He was
I
still
would have
wrong.
thought that it did, but
It didn't.
what I love about Kubrick's shots the most is the long hallway shots, which
Drop
are like
something.
they're so it just fell off. I mean, what am I gonna do? It's probably an earthquake. We're out here. I'm frightened. Was the long when Danny turns around and he sees the two girls,
Oh my God.
or the Clockwork Orange zoom in?
Yeah.
Was that all his
Right.
director of photography, or was that his vision first?
No. Nothing happened that he didn't personally direct and see to.
Did you find the little girls? Were you the one who discovered them?
Yeah. I was desperate because I'd found one good little actress for one of the Grady girls, and in the book it's sisters. But they don't talk about what age they are. And
Book was lame anyway.
Yeah, exactly. bunch of dumb hedge animals. Boo.
We're alive.
Fucking guy running around with a
that
stupid
would have been
croquet
fun,
mallet.
auditioning people for dumb hedge animals. I'd have enjoyed that. But in England, most children went to these stage schools where they have to overreact to everything and explain everything. I was so terribly frightened.
Yeah.
Like a
And kind of
Nickelodeon
thought-
actor.
Yeah. No,
Or like me
exactly.
today. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
But on the very last day, the very last pair that came in were those girls, and I just looked at them and I thought, oh my God, they're like the twins in that Diane Arbus. So you got a famous photographs of those two twins. Well, they would be two. those twins standing in Central Park, sort of looking really kind of weird and
Mhm.
cross-eyed. And I just thought, oh my God, this is great. So I videoed them very quickly, and I just ran on the set to Stanley and said, I've got him, I've got him, I've got him. And we looked at the video, and the first thing he said was, Diane Arbus.
Oh, he loved it.
Yeah, yeah.
Did he reuse a lot of people? Because I know the father who played Delbert Grady played the father in A Clockwork Orange.
Right,
He
right.
reused a few people, right?
But
he didn't seem to use-
if he could use anybody, not just actors, but anybody on the technical side to work with again, who we enjoyed working with, sure, if there was a role for them, then sure, welcome.
And when he was done with you, Malcolm McDowell, we had him on a few years ago, and he said that he was really hurt that he wanted to maintain this relationship with Kubrick, and a lot of people just wanted to be close to him. But when the movie was over, it was like, fucking adios.
Yeah, it was a
Done with
little
you.
bit like that. Yeah, it was a little bit. Yeah,
Did you ever worry, like, oh, I hope that I'm maintaining our relationship, like maybe early on we're 6 months in, oh, I don't know if he likes me, I hope he wants to keep doing this, I kind of want to keep doing this for a while?
Well, it was funny because when I was shooting Barry Lyndon, and he said...
Barry.
What?
It was Barry.
I haven't seen that one. Is that the sequel to Jerry?
Yeah, sequel. Son of Barry Lyndon. And... But he sort of said, Leon, we broke, and he said, Leon, I want to hold on because I want to talk to you. And I thought, oh my God, that's me gone, because we had 3 George IIIs, ironically.
What, he kept firing them?
Yeah, yeah. And I thought that was it for me, but it wasn't. It was exact opposite. But it was one of those things where I don't know how to put it, because we kept in contact even after the production, and he'd send little Christmas gifts to me and my wife, and so we were always in contact with each other.
Do you think Eyes Wide Shut is an underrated movie?
Yes.
Yeah, because I mean,
You were in it, by the way.
You did
8 times.
eight different roles. Yeah.
I just adore that movie, and I feel like people do not talk about it when they talk about Kubrick's work. But I just think
exactly
it's the greatest
what happened
thing.
with Barry Lyndon. You see,
Yeah.
he got trashed when it first came out, and I went to New York with the Filmworker, for a festival there, and there were all these film students, 18, 19, 20 years old. And they'd come up to me and they said, oh my God, we've just seen Eyes Wide Shut. It's my favorite movie. I love it. It's fantastic. And a lot of people are coming back to me saying, well, I didn't get it at first, but now I've gone to see it again. I realize it's really... And so it's growing, just like Barry Lyndon did. Barry Lyndon didn't really blossom until I'd say middle 90s, when all of a sudden we were getting feedback back from people saying they'd just seen it again and they hadn't understood it. And you got to remember that Barry Lyndon, was released at a time when, Dog Day Afternoon, China, all these high-paced
One Flew Over the
movies,
Cuckoo's Nest.
One Flew Over the Cuckoo. That was the period that it came out in, where nobody moved faster than 1 mile an hour when they
Right.
were walking. It wasn't exactly an action movie.
Oh, right.
And
So-
same thing first happened with Barry Lyndon. No, not Barry.
Eyes Wide Shut.
2001.
Oh, 2001. Yes, absolutely.
It was only the sort of the kind of young audiences that carried it through, and Stanley had a comparison board with the critics who'd said something about dissed it in the beginning, and what they said about it up to a year later.
Which movie do you mean?
2001.
What's that?
That's
It's a space movie.
Some might call it an odyssey.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, some call it an oddity too. But anyway, so and it was so black and white. It was so negative, and then suddenly they realized what a masterpiece it was. So he didn't like it, but you kind of used to that kind of reaction to his movies.
And it's also, too, like when you look at like Nicole Kidman, that scene she has with Tom Cruise where she's talking about wanting to fuck that sailor who she saw.
Yeah.
I think that's the best moment she's ever had on film, was that where she's telling him she would have thrown the whole thing out
Yes.
to have one night with that
Yes,
guy.
That's because you were
One
fully
night
erect
with
while
that
you
guy.
were watching it.
I certainly was,
Yeah.
yes. A British lady talking about fucking somebody, yes. I did
You
like
like
it,
that.
even though she's Australian.
Yeah.
Yes, she takes perception to that. Yeah.
Yeah, the British Australian part is the part that she'd had the problem with.
Yeah,
I know. I was so focused on the erection.
So when Stanley was towards the end of his life and
Kubrick.
directing Stanley Kubrick,
Yeah.
was towards the end of his life in directing film. Was there any sort of, this isn't the same Stanley, he's kind of losing it, like this is the end, or is his mind still sharp and firing as much as it always was?
His mind was still firing off. I mean, it really was. I mean, he was very, very tired. I'll grant you that. I mean, he was very tired, physically tired. But we were working like 18 hours, 7 days a week, And he was 70 at the time. So, you do get tired quicker, easier. But, he was pushing himself through it. And but his mind was as sharp as a
That has to be
razor.
so frustrating when you have a mind that sharp and your body is just not catching up with
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Well, you don't have either, Jim.
Are you two good friends?
This is just an audition. We're hoping we get the gig.
Yeah.
So now, when Eyes Wide Shut, how much filming was done after he died, and were there parts of it that were in the final production that were not put together the way he would have wanted it?
No. He'd actually sent a final cut to New York for Terry Semel and Bob Daly, they're the heads of Warner Brothers, and Tom and Nicole to see. That was a week before he died. And that was his final cut. So there was nothing.
And you maintain that, like
Yeah,
that they
yeah,
didn't
yeah,
cut
yeah.
it
Well,
after
he
that.
had
Yeah.
final cut.
But-
He's one of the few directors that,
Yeah.
that got final cut.
No, absolutely. But, we had a problem with the censors. And they say there's no censors, but there are censors, believe me. Because in that masked ball scene where, he's touring around, he's
Yeah.
watching what's depravity going on around him, they wanted to make cuts in that. And we just refused to do it. We just said, no. We argued it, and they kept on saying, well, it's going to get an X rating, and that'll harm the audience attendance, And so in the end, they came up with that compromise about putting CGI figures sort of in the way,
In
so
the
they're
way of, yeah.
partly obscured, which was. But anyway, it don't have to do that anymore. Now you'll see it the way it was shot.
Right.
And the only thing we had to do was to lay in, which sounds, I say only thing we had to do, but the soundtrack to build up for the final mix.
Which was very good. So now, is there a version of it without those things in the way?
Yeah. You can get
The home video
Blu-ray,
version, right?
the whole video.
But he
version.
did have contractually they couldn't change anything once he handed it in.
I never read a contract of his, which were generally that thick. He threw one out on the table once and said, "That's my contract. You want to read it?" No, thanks. But he was respected so much,
Yeah.
and they knew whatever it said in the contract. If anybody argued to do it, they were going to get a face full of crap.
Is that letter a myth too, where they were going to do a sequel? What movie were they talking about doing a sequel to, and he went crazy?
Jerry Lyndon.
No, that was they were doing part 3 with Richard Pryor and Chris. Oh, that's Superman 3.
I got him confused.
2001.
Yes,
Where are you going to do 2010?
and he wrote something.
And he went nuts. Yeah.
Is that letter a fake, where he said something? Don't
I
fuck
don't know.
with me.
Yeah, no. When he said he'd still got the jawbone from the skeleton, he'd shove it so far up their ass.
Yeah. Yes. And then he ended it with "Don't fuck with me."
Yes. I don't know. I wasn't around at the time, so I can't say. But it's not really the way he ever kind of approached a letter or to somebody.
Do you remember the most pissed off he ever got?
What you mean with me personally?
No, just that you saw.
That I saw.
Or with you personally.
Yeah.
Or with me personally.
Yeah.
And I think the most pissed off I ever saw him was when somebody suggested to him that he get himself a proper professional editor. And he just went off. He came into my office. I thought it was me. I'd done something. He just came into my office and he picked up my phone and smashed it like that on the desk. And then he cleared this table I'd got of all these 6 months of collated correspondence about transfers and shit that we were doing, And he was beating the walls with his fist, and he was just so angry, and he just felt so, what can I say, insulted. Absolutely.
Who suggested it?
I'm not telling you.
Okay. Let's just
An
say
actor? An
yeah, what
actor?
kind of a person
no,
was it?
no, I'm not. What kind of a person?
Meaning, was it
An
asshole.
insensitive one.
Was it a behind the scenes?
one
Like,
that didn't know Stanley too well?
was it a
seems to
studio
be.
person?
Yeah, sort of, kind of.
Did that person ever know how angry he got at them?
No, he didn't actually.
Wow.
Did you say anything to Stanley, like when he was doing that, breaking things? Like, well, you're cleaning it up, Stanley.
Yeah, don't break my shit.
No, but it took me like 2-3 days to get all those hundreds of communications back to where
Back
they
to order.
were. By
Did you ever yell at him?
Sorry?
Did you ever yell at him?
We had arguments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever win any?
I actually got an apology from him once.
Whoa.
Yeah.
For what?
For what? Because I'd given him some information, and he was in the middle of, he was editing and what have you, and he rang me up and said, well, it's a load of fucking bullshit, Leon. And then somebody else had rung him after he told me that, and given him the same information that she told him. It was about how many boxes of prints could you get inside an aeroplane, and because we were flying these out to France, and we were all on deadline, And he rang me up and he said, I'm sorry, Leon. I'm sorry, Leon. I'm sorry, Leon. You were right.
Wow.
There you go.
That has to feel great. When he
It did.
I mean, it has to.
Yeah,
When
you
he
bet.
passed away,
Yeah.
was there this moment for you where you're like, well, what the fuck do I do now? I've dedicated my life to
Yeah.
this man's work. And
Right. Called Judd Apatow. Hey, you need anyone?
Yes. Your movies remind me of Stanley. Well, we were still in the middle of
So just back to work.
finishing it. Yeah. And that was the amazing thing. And, I don't think I felt it. He died in March, and I finally kicked the last print of Full Metal Jacket out, Eyes Wide Shut out to the last territory, which was Turkey, actually. And it was in at the end of August. And that was when I sort of kind of thought, oh my God, he's kind of gone. Because all the time you carried this thing around with him, still do to this day, where if I drop something or do something dumb, I go, oh, Leon, what are you doing? Just the way you used to talk
Sure.
to me, And, but then, they wanted me to carry on and work with all the restorations for his camera negatives and his sound and what have you. And that was the DVD collection that came out, and that took like 3 years. And then we went on and did Blu-rays, and then we went on and done other stuff.
What do you have a most of all the things that you've had from him, or the little notes or whatever? Is there anything you have that you treasure the most that you got from him?
Yes, he there was a note he left me which was about something he wanted me to do. It was about doing some research into cameras and what have you. And it was quite sort of short. And then there was this sort of splodge at the bottom of the note. And he circled it and wrote, by the way, this is coffee stain. It is not my snot. Stanley.
I've had to do the same thing with notes, but I say tapioca.
Tapioca.
Right, not my. Well, Leon Vitali, the documentary is on Netflix. I suggest everybody go
It's
see it.
so good.
It's called Filmworker.
Really interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I want to give a shout Tony Sierra, who directed and made it, shot it,
Yeah.
and Elizabeth Yoffe, the producer. There were just 2 people. He spent 3 years filming, and he had 200 hours of material,
Wow.
and he got it. It was like a jigsaw, and he got it down to what it is now.
It's very good.
And I'm
Yeah,
so glad
it
that there are
is.
people like you and
It's
him that are still talking about Kubrick and telling the stories and getting the films out the way they're supposed to be out. He's just, I mean, he's still the unmatched brilliance of this guy.
Yeah.
Is
I
still
know.
just incredible.
I know,
Um,
and I can't tell you. It's amazing how many people actually say how much they love his films, and they loved him for his films.
When you
Yeah.
talk to other, like if you bump into somebody, if they know who you are, if you met Spielberg or Coppola or any of these guys, do they all want to talk to you because you were so close to him?
No.
Bummer.
Really, no.
Oh.
I g-
Well,
short answer, no.